Over 2,000 years ago, Greece was not a unified nation like we know today, but instead was a collection of small independent city-states such as Athens, Corinth, Sparta, and many more, each with its own unique systems of government, laws, commerce, and societal structure. These city-states would face a huge threat in the form of the Achaemenid Empire, which I'll now refer to as the Persian Empire, which stretched from modern-day countries of Egypt, Israel, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and many parts of northern India. This was not enough for god King Xerxes, who wanted to invade Europe and raze Athens to the ground, to avenge his father Darius. This was because his father had been defeated by the Greeks in the battle marathon of 490 BC. Xerxes was determined not to experience the same fate as his father. Xerxes mustered a mighty army, rallying troops from all parts of his empire. Historians may debate, but sources claim that his army numbered anywhere from 200,000 to 250,000 troops. An invasion of this scale has never been attempted before in history. Due to the threat of the Persian Empire, several independent Greek city-states formed a sort of coalition. In 480 BC, Xerxes crossed from Asia to Europe by Thrace and moved his army through northern Greece. His army made its way down to northern Greece, and a large fleet shattered the army. City after city fell due to the might of this grand army, its citizens mainly enslaved. However, the main target of this campaign would be the capture of Athens. The Greeks had to stop this threat at all costs, and it was decided at Thermopylae, also known as the Hot Gates, is where the Greeks will make their stand. Due to the geological formations of the Greek peninsula, the Persian army of that magnitude had no other point of access to Athens other than the pass of Thermopylae. The Greek coalition sent a force of approximately 7,000 men to hold the pass. Sparta was able to send 300 of their best warriors. Spartan society was completely opposite to Athenian society. For example, Athenians were more open to learning from other cultures, societies, and people. However, the Spartans had focused on their isolation much more. Spartan men were educated to be soldiers and did not hold any other profession. At a young age of 7 years old, all Spartan boys were trained for one thing and one thing only: war. In Spartan society, all ordinary work, be it manual or administrative to a degree, were done by slaves known as helots. The 300 Spartans were led by Leonidas, who was king of Sparta at the time. Historians believe that he was not optimistic about his chances of winning the battle against the Persians. This was because he sent his troops away from Sparta during an important religious festival. This was blasphemy, and many priests stated that the gods would not favor him. The oracle at Delphi also told the Spartans that if they went to war, a Spartan king would have to die before any victory could be claimed. The main Greek and Spartan frontline infantry were known as Hoplites or Hoplites. Equipment consisted of armor which was made from bronze and was fastened together with leather, linen, and other material. The greaves protected the shins of the troops. The Hoplites also sported a long, round, concave shield called hoplons, which were also constructed of wood, leather, linen, and bronze. Shields were also typically 1 meter in length, providing excellent protection. The main offensive weapons the hoplites would wield was the long thrusting spear called a doru or dori, typically made from wood with a curved leaf-shaped blade at the end, made from iron or bronze. The spear was about 2.4 meters long. The hoplites also had a secondary weapon called a xiphus, which was a short sword. These tended to be used when the main spear broke. Another smaller variant of a short sword was called the corpus, which was favored by the Spartans. Hoplites were divided into regiments, and when they went into battle, they would form a formation called a phalanx. The phalanx featured lines of tightly packed hoplites. The phalanx would move and fight as one unit. Shields would be lining the outside, protecting the collective mass of the phalanx. The extended spears would keep enemies at bay. Now looking at the Persian infantry. The Persian infantry were trained for fast-moving warfare on open plains. The Persian army also relied heavily on archers and cavalry. Xerxes also brought with him his most elite troops, infamously known as the Immortals. The light troops of the Persians were not heavily armored and had small, light wicker-work shields and spears. King Leonidas positioned his brave 300 Spartan warriors at the narrowest point of the path, and the rest of the Greek army had taken up positions behind them. In contrast, Xerxes deployed a large portion of his army in front of the pass. There he would wait several days before giving the order to attack, because he could not believe his eyes. How could the Greeks even dare challenge him? After 5 days of waiting for the Greek forces to simply give up, Xerxes demanded to Leonidas to surrender your weapons. The Spartan king shouted back, "Come and get them." After the Greeks refused to surrender, the order was given to attack the Greeks. Persian light archers and light infantry assaulted the narrow pass. This is where Leonidas swapped out his troops with other Greek hoplites to hold his more experienced men in reserve. The phalanx formation was perfectly positioned, and the robust nature of the Greek shields and sturdy armor meant that the Persian archers had little impact. After the less experienced Greek troops began to get tired, King Leonidas ordered his 300 Spartans to relieve the front line. As he did this, the exhausted troops fell back behind the Spartan line. This is where the highly trained Spartans slaughtered all that was in front of them. The confined space made it impossible for the Persians to take advantage of their superior numbers, and they were unable to outflank the Spartans due to the impassable terrain. Xerxes would send wave after wave of his men into the fray to try and break the formidable Spartans, but his troops could not gain any advantage and were simply outmatched. As the battle moved into the second day, the Persians could not make any headway. They were not prepared for this type of combat. They were far removed from the wide plains of the east, where cavalry, light infantry, and archers reigned supreme. After becoming so agitated due to the high number of troops he was losing, Xerxes decided to send in his personal bodyguards, the Immortals. The Immortals were Xerxes' elite force, more heavily armed and had better training. However, rank after rank of Immortals fell to the Spartan phalanx. As Xerxes was beginning to give up hope, a Greek traitor by the name of Ephialtes sold out his fellow countrymen and told Xerxes of a secret pass in the mountains that will bypass the Spartans, which will lead them to their doom. Under the cover of darkness, a large Persian force followed the hidden path, and on the morning of the third day, they had emerged behind the Spartans. After seeing this, King Leonidas told most of the Greek army to withdraw, but the Spartans stayed, to hold the Persians back until the rest of the Greeks were able to escape. As the battle recommenced, the Persians closed in on the Spartans on both sides. The Spartans had nothing left to lose. They would fight with such sheer ferocity and made the Persians pay a heavy toll for victory. In the end, the Spartans would fall, but the Persians would lose over 10,000 men, which devastated the morale of Xerxes and his army. After the Battle of Thermopylae, Xerxes and his army rushed through the narrow pass to capture Athens, but when Xerxes and his army reached Athens, the army and the citizens had already left for safety. Later in the same year of 480 BC, the Greek coalition raised a fleet and defeated the Persians at the Battle of Salamis, destroying Xerxes' scheme to capture Greece and the rest of Europe. Some historians claim that, without the Spartan interference, that the Greeks would have lost the war entirely.